Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. You may remember me as Patrick Daugherty. I am joined, as always, by Denny Carter, Kyle Dvorchak, and, of course, a Week 9 preview. It's October 30th, 2025. We're almost to All Hallows Eve. Apparently, Denny has some family drama over the blessed holiday that gets longer every year. Halloween began September 10th in America this year. So we'll talk about that. But we're also going to talk about Cardinals at the Cowboys, Chiefs at the Bills. See here, yep. Colts, Steelers. I guess we'll talk about that one. Bears, Bengals, and Joe Flacco. We trust. Please, Joe, get out there. Total holding strong. Bookmakers think he's going to play. Vikings at the Lions. And bookmakers also definitely thinking J.J. McCarthy is going to play since the Vikings are almost 2-score underdogs. Loaded slate this week. Unlike last week, seems like I didn't miss a whole lot.
You missed nothing. It's weird to miss a whole week of football and nothing happened.
I know. I was much more down bad missing the baseball. Shohei Ohtani reaching base 9 times. And, of course, it didn't even matter at all. They're going to lose the series. Goes to show Shohei Ohtani not even good.
Not
Denny,
good.
Not even good.
If you were good, they'd be winning. Go ahead.
That's true. And Denny, if your son were good, if he were a good little boy, he would want to be something different for Halloween, I take it. What is your son trying to be for All Hallows Eve, October 31st, this Friday?
He's big into scary stuff, and that is entirely my fault. We're
all trying to find the parent who did this.
We're all trying to find the parent who had him watching Friday the 13th movies when he was 6 years old. And but he pushed for it. He really enjoys it. Seems to really get a kick out of it. So we bonded over the scary thing, but we have reached the point where we go now shopping for a costume for Halloween, right? And so, we went to Spirit Halloween.
So you actually went.
That's
so
perfect.
Which of the 4 did you choose in your backyard?
We didn't go in the one in our backyard. I wanted to get out of the house, so we went about 10 miles down the road, and we go in. It's a madhouse. I turn up the patience dial to 14, and I'm like, you know what, buddy? You go cook. Like, you go do your thing. You find what you want, and you let me know when you're ready to go, and we'll go. Okay.
And he came back with a Ronald Reagan mask.
He did. And my molars grinded to dust. But then he presented the scariest clown costume I've ever seen in my life. It comes with blood splatter on the outfit itself, right? The mask is deformed and like horrifying on like a really like visceral level. It has claws for some reason. Truly, like I was rattled, and I was like, okay, are you sure about this? Because here's the thing, you definitely can't wear that to school. Like the school's not letting you wear that. No, and then like when we go trick-or-treating, you're gonna see a bunch of 5-year-olds. He's 12. 5-year-old, and they're gonna start crying. So is that what you want? And he was like, yes, that is what.
He's like, check that box.
Yeah, that sounds great to me, Dad.
Yep,
exactly. And I said, well, let's pay $55 for this sucker and get out of here.
This is great.
I will say, this reminds me of one of my main boomer rants, is that you're watching football and like a commercial for like a horror movie comes on. And they show like 90% of someone getting chainsawed in half. It makes a difference that they didn't show the final 10%. Like, you're aware I do have children.
Like you can't show an actual exorcism. Like,
you're like, please, it happens gambling again. Teach my kids about gambling again. Don't show them that.
You can't show them taking a sip of their Mick Ultra, but you can show a literal exorcism on the commercial.
Yeah,
to be a bit incongruent.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
Good luck to your son scaring the bejesus out of 4 and 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds. My 9-year-old daughter, who was a cat, would have maybe cried.
See, a cat. This is what we need. We need a cat.
My daughter, a cat. I don't remember what my son is. I'm sure it's something good. I do remember what Cardinals Cowboys is. It's saving football. 54.5 game total. This is, of course, before it ruins football and easily hits the under because Kyler Murray is not good. Yeah. But this season, I'll read now my actual official preamble here. This season's most reliable shootout machine, the Dallas Cowboys, are once again party to the week's highest game total as Arizona arrives in town with a 54.5 over-under. They are expected to be rejoined by Kyler Murray under center Denny, but Kyler is a quarterback was yet to spike a week this season. Not a joke, folks. Barely spiked any last year. Is this finally the day against the Dallas Cowboys? Bo Nix went off against the Cowboys. What does Kyler's return mean for the likes of Marvin Harrison Jr., who maybe he introduced himself to while he was on the shelf with injury?
All right, I'll start with the Kyler angle. I suppose you got to start him just because the matchup is good, and everybody gets there.
All right, pull the rug.
Yeah, I know. I took a stand in the rankings this week. I ranked him as QB 17. I know it's going to backfire on me spectacularly.
No, that sounds okay. That sounds.
I was doing a bit. I kind of agree with Denny. Like, I don't know, like man. Cowboys games are so cool, dude.
Bryce Young had like 26 fantasy points against these guys. Okay. Like, I mean, so I'm not saying, Kyler Murray literally incapable of scoring 26 fantasy points, but 22, 20, something in there, that could be fine. But, and this is not a bit, and I'm not trying to exaggerate or get anybody's goat here, but this Cardinals offense clearly way better with Jacoby Brissett under center.
Clearly is a bit strong.
Stop with that. No. Look, and especially for fantasy. Brissett 8.8 air yards per attempt this season. That ranks 4th among all quarterbacks. Kyler Murray 6 air yards per attempt. Only Dylan Gabriel is below him.
Oh my god!
Okay.
What is wrong with this
Dylan
guy?
Gabriel, man, the phrase "only Dylan Gabriel" cannot come after a starting quarterback. Like this quarterback X, only Dylan Gabriel Y is one of the most heinous sentences in football this year.
Hashtag free Shador.
So, this whole thing about this whole thing, get it trending. This whole thing about like Trey McBride can't score touchdowns. We've seen that that's not true. We've seen that he actually can score if he has a quarterback who's capable of getting him the ball.
Oh my gosh.
And no, I mean, this is not to say Brissett is good. He's not. But at least he can see over the line of scrimmage and he can throw it to his pass catchers.
I'm fully with Denny on this. I support you, Denny.
Yeah,
go off, King.
So Marvin Harrison Jr. Has weekly top 12 upside with Brissett under center. Without him, he's a shot in the dark wide receiver 3 or 4.
Even against the Cowboys, who you just claimed will spark.
Yeah, man.
How is he arriving at these fabled 22 to 23 points, Kyler Murray?
So you're talking about the difference of like 130 plus air yards per game, not for MHJ, but for the team in total. Like
and not to mention also actual yards. The Cardinals' 2 highest passing totals this season, of course, Jacoby Brissett in weeks 6 and 7.
So it's a knock. It's a significant knock on McBride and MHJ that Kyler's back.
Hard to argue with that. Kyle, hard to argue with the fact that the Cardinals' backfield situation is a little weird and confusing. They cut Michael Carter, then he came back the next day.
It's just roster maneuvering shenanigans.
I will say it's unclear if he came back solely because Dearness Johnson was surprisingly signed by the Patriots. This is like another little mystery wrinkle in it. But it certainly appears to just be roster manipulation because I think Bam Knight only played 44% of the snaps in week 7. So it'd be pretty weird to cut his backfield partner after that kind of game. So lay out the Cardinals backfield. Now that Michael Carter's been cut, brought back, and probably elevated on Saturday.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what's going to end up happening. I mean, it is still a vote of confidence, I think, in a small degree in Bam Knight, who is still the team's, quote, leading back, but it is kind of an ugly committee. You still have Michael Carter playing what we would have, like, a month ago called the Amari DiMercato role, where he's primarily out there for passing downs.
Is Amari DiMercato, by the way, no offense to Amari DiMercato, there's no softer word to say than worse. Is he the worst player to ever get a role named after him, by the way?
I wasn't sure that sentence was going to end. Oh, man.
I was going to say Charbonnet.
Oh, come on. All right. Come on. Just go, Kyle.
Honestly, we don't name good roles after good players. Like the Jamar Chase role isn't a thing.
That's true. You only get a role named after you if you're not good. That actually is a good point.
He's just Jamar Chase. Like it's not the Jamar Chase role. He's the Jamar Chase. Like he's the dude. And then guys who carve out weird niche roles, they get the role named after them. So to me, I do think we'll see probably Carter called up for this game. I think probably just like roster manipulation stuff that we see with regularity. It's just typically not.
The Cardinals saved $40,000 by doing
I know. It is like the most pedantic stuff from NFL teams when they do this, but whatever. Go off GMs, have fun doing this stuff. We saw in week 7, Michael Carter saw just shy of a third of the carries. He ran exactly a third of the routes. I don't think he's a complete hindrance to Bam Knight, in the sense of Bam Knight should still see at least half the carries, and you're seeing half the carries in a massive shootout against a terrible Dallas defense. I think it's a high risk proposition with Bam because you're really hoping for maybe 12 to 15 carries and a catch or 2 catches maybe. But if you told me you can lock in 12 carries against these Dallas Cowboys, I don't care. Put him in your lineup. You have to.
Yeah, Bam on the RB2 periphery, basically because of the matchup. Also, maybe a little bit because of the Carter weirdness. Speaking of the Carter weirdness, Denny. Denny, Pickens as in George, versus CeeDee Lamb in 2 games since Lamb's return. It's kind of been a standstill in terms of production. What about the usage?
The Carter weirdness was the name of my Oingo Boingo cover band in college, by the way.
Wow.
It's actually been good for Pickens. So in those 2 games, Pickens has seen 38% of the air yards, 23% of the targets. Lamb is at 36% air yards and 26% targets. If you look at first read targets, Lamb has 15, Pickens has 14. So it's pretty cut down the middle. I mean, it's a condensed target distribution, and Jake Ferguson really missed out on that last week, I guess, with a 0.
Fergie.
Fergie with the 0. But yeah, I think the idea, the thesis, I think put forward by Pat, that this would not look like the first week or 2. I think that's come to bear, and Pickens is an exciting wide receiver 2,
high-end wide receiver 2, at least ranked as that this week, looking like a top 15 option. And yeah, Fergalicious definition, down horrific. Google it if you don't know what I'm talking about, or maybe don't actually. I don't know.
Yeah.
Any ancillary Cardinals we like, by the way, in this game environment? Michael Wilson, not good. Zay Jones, not good. Mark DeMercado, not good. But do we like any of these people?
No.
Do we like any of these people? As people, I'm sure they're fine.
I mean, look,
if
McBride and MHJ can kind of sort of get there, I'll be happy. But
me too.
Yeah, you're not counting on a third Cardinal lighting up the box score. We're counting on everyone and Chiefs Bills to light up the box score. At least, please. This is how this used to be America. This used to be football. Chiefs Bills. By the way, last year they had 2 games. The game totals were 47.5 and 45.5. That's not America.
45.5 was one of these totals?
Yes, the AFC Championship game or whatever was division round. 45.5, 47.5. That's not America. 52.5. That's in America. So finally forced to admit that the Chiefs just might be better than the Bills after all. The bookmakers have made Kansas City a 2.5-point favorite in Buffalo, Kyle. Josh Allen hasn't really been spiking weeks this season, but he's maintained an elite fantasy floor, keeping him in the top 3 at the position. His floor is so high. Might we finally get a full-blown ceiling effort with this game total, as I mentioned, well north of 50? And by the way, I know you think that I'm getting rug pulled on the Chiefs being favored here, since they don't ever beat the Bills in the regular season, but then always beat them when it actually matters. But yeah, what do you think's going to happen with Josh Allen in this game?
All right, so let me just wipe away all the notes I had for this. I believe the Bills have won 4 straight, specifically in the regular season. Obviously, like my goat Mahomes, you don't lose like postseason, especially AFC games. You don't lose AFC games in the postseason. I will say we talked about this last week that you contended the Bills didn't look super explosive, and I was like, I don't know, they're like.
And I'm sticking with it every week.
They dropped 40 last week and had 50-yard catches or a 50-yard touchdown for Shakir and I think like 60-yard James Cook run. But I do think you were right in that we hadn't seen a ton of Josh Allen spike weeks. He has the 2nd highest fantasy scoring game of the year for a quarterback, and then a bunch of like 22s, basically, like a bunch of QB 7, 5, 11 type finishes. And I think one of the biggest reasons for that is not that the offense hasn't been good or hasn't been explosive, but they played, I believe it's 1 game that was decided by 1 possession. And typically they're winning, although they actually did kind of get blown out by the Falcons. But when they are winning by more than 1 possession, which they've done at the 6th highest rate this year in terms of snaps, like they played the 6th highest snaps, 8+ point differential, they are one of the slowest and the most run-heavy teams. I believe they have the 6th slowest pace in the NFL when winning by either 8 or more than 8. I forget what I filtered to. And they're the 4th most run-heavy team when they're up by 1+ possessions. Like, they do not keep their foot on the gas. Largely, it really, like, it's not cost them yet. And I think if they had gotten pushed a little more in some of these games, maybe they would have if they're only up by a field goal, or in this case, if they're losing to the Chiefs. So if there was ever a spot to return to, it was week 1, that like insane game against the Ravens where Allen dropped just shy of 40 points. If there were ever another game that was going to look like that, I mean, you could not draw it up better. They are at home, but slight underdogs, massive total. I think it's like clear, not that you were benching Josh Allen, but in terms of his fantasy projection, has to be QB1 on the week. And it's not, maybe not even close.
Well, it's close because of Mahomes, and it's close because of returning Lamar Thursday evening. Who knows what actually happened in that game? Hopefully he actually produced. Should the Ravens really be 7.5-point favorites against anybody in the league right now? Hopefully this doesn't sound dumb on Friday. But that was my thoughts heading into that game. And yeah, I did forget when writing the note, Chiefs should be favored, but they're not going to win the Bills. This is the Bills Super Bowl. The actual Super Bowl, of course, is the Chiefs. This game is the Bills Super Bowl. Speaking of the Chiefs, Denny, how has Rashee Rice changed this Chiefs offense? Does Mahomes go off this week? We're predicting Allen to go off, obviously. Does Mahomes, the QB1 overall right now, also go off against the Bills?
Bills are not good right now. Let's just say that. But so we're back to check down Charlie Mahomes with Rashee Rice in the mix.
Yeah, I hope all you're happy. I hope all your best ball bros are happy. Oh, Rashee Rice is amazing. He's really good for the Chiefs. Yeah. They just used him as Evan Ingram 2.0. It's amazing.
So there's been over 2 games, and the Raiders game was hard to decipher because it was
digest. I thought you were going to say it was hard to digest. It was ugly.
Hard to digest, hard to watch.
Yeah,
hard to
stomach churning. Just like a crazy
hard to take in. But yeah, I mean, so his air yards per throw are way down, are significantly down since Rice's return. But Rice has seen a target on 39% of his routes, which is good. Kelsey's seen a target on 20% of his routes over those 2 games, and Xavier Worthy is down. Let me check my binoculars. 17%.
Don't look. Yeah,
don't look. They are designing plays for Worthy per the spreadsheets, but I just feel like he's very much a secondary option at this point. I will say the Bills right now.
Even worse, JMO. All they do is design plays for him, and all they do is never connect. Like no
I wouldn't say that.
Man,
I would pump the brakes on even there can't be a worse JMO.
Worse JMO.
Let me be clear. Bills are the 4th most extreme run funnel this season. They are allowing the 6th highest rate of rush yards before contact. It might tempt the Chiefs to not be so super pass heavy, but who knows? I mean, they really never really get away from that sort of script, but Kareem Hunt obviously in a great spot.
So yeah, speaking of Kareem Hunt, Kyle, the Bills have been getting obliterated on the ground all year. Even last week, Rico Dowdle was just ripping chunk gains, and the Panthers for some reason did not stick with that. But the big change, Isaiah Pacheco injured again, unfortunately out with an MCL issue. Kareem Hunt taken back over. Brashard Smith, of course, sprinkling in. How do we feel about this new, old look, whatever you want to call it, Chiefs backfield against the Bills run defense that typically struggles this year?
My fear is that we see a lot of the Isaiah Pacheco work go to Kareem Hunt because the entire year it has felt like this team is not generating explosive plays on the ground. They're relatively consistent, but Isaiah Pacheco is not, at least he hasn't looked like the explosive back that he was as a rookie, essentially. Maybe he's better than, he is. He was really rough when he came back from that injury last year. He's been better than that. But I still don't think he's a dynamic player on the ground. They have not cared. And when they have cared, it's to give an even less dynamic player in Kareem Hunt touches. So I think they're fine with the way their backfield is operating in terms of the efficiency, or more so like the boring lack thereof of efficiency. We should probably pencil in Kareem Hunt for 65-ish% of the team's carries, but that's still an improvement for Brashard Smith, who was getting, like, some games he was getting almost no carries, and sometimes when he was getting carries, it was because the game was a complete blowout. So to me, this already was a fun spot for Brashard Smith to see 4 or 5 catches. He had at least 3 catches in 4 straight games until they just destroyed the Commanders. They didn't need to use their passing downs back in that game. Now there's a chance for him to run more routes in a more high-octane environment, maybe push that 5-6 catch mark, and still have the chance to get to, let's call it like 8 carries. I don't think he's really going to threaten for double-digit carries in this game because I think that's probably more likely to be Kareem Hunt. But Smith's really fun, and he's going to be a good PPR bet. I don't think he's a good bet for touchdowns because that is all Kareem Hunt right now. But you probably have I don't want to say RB2, but man, the touchdown scoring back on one of the highest implied team total teams of the week in one of the highest total games in the week, Kareem Hunt, kind of is an RB2, I think.
So.
No, he's an RB2.
Is that 3-4 kind of fun zone.
Hunt's an RB2. I'm not trying to damn with faint praise here, but Brashard Smith is finally like second flex viable, I would say, this week too. Yeah. He's been hanging around your bench. You haven't really felt like you could use him. I think you actually can use him in that second flex spot this week. And I will say about the Chiefs running game, it's probably just be like a lot more air handoffs to Rashee Rice. since
Yeah,
that's all Mahomes.
absolutely.
Rashee Rice, low key, quote unquote, ruined Mahomes' career. He was finally getting back on track until Rashee Rice came back.
Yeah, no, it has been a pretty significant change in the way they're operating this offense with Rice back.
By the way, any Bills? So speaking of ancillary, you said ancillary Cardinals earlier. We have not been excited about any ancillary Bills pass catchers here. So they just don't do anything. Are we finally excited about like Keon Coleman? I don't know, maybe even Josh Palmer. Does he still play football?
He's not gonna probably play this week. Still dealing with the like knee ankle combo injury that he suffered like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So it is down to likely Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, and Dalton Kincaid, who is one player I'd signal out as the league's leader among tight ends in yards per route run. Again, that's because he doesn't run all of the routes, but like, I don't know, 65% of the routes in this game is still going to be awesome. It should work.
Denny, final thought on the Bills.
After being 15% below their expected pass rate in week 8, Buffalo is now the run heaviest team in football. So they are not trying to pass it. I don't love this environment.
I will say the Chiefs stopped the run pretty ferociously. So hopefully the Bills.
Well,
I've never seen a more guaranteed under in my life. Don't get me wrong.
I would say under. Josh Allen can get there for fantasy in a lot of ways, and I think he's going to have to get there on the ground this time because no one to throw to, no good receivers, and lately it's been check down city. So he's just that deep ball thing is completely gone from this offense.
Adam points out you got very blurry when saying the Bills weren't going to score. So we'll see about that. Speaking of the run, the Indianapolis Colts. It's the annual time of year where people speculate a running back should be the MVP for some reason. Of course, it will never happen. But Jonathan Taylor will continue to produce. The Colts continue to drive over everything in their path while the Steelers' defense is in collapse. They're allowing the most passing yards in the entire league. That's how we've arrived at the rare sight of Daniel Jones and Mike Tomlin meeting up with a game total north of 50. They said it could not be done. They said the Steelers would never have a game total north of 50 following Ben Roethlisberger's retirement. It has happened, Denny. Everyone is talking about Jonathan Taylor of late, but how do we feel about Daniel Jones and his deep skill core in this one, a deep skill core that could be missing Josh Downs to the hip injury?
Yeah, and that would hurt a little bit. But, so this game actually started at 44.5 and is up to 50.5 now. Pretty big change.
Hold on, where are you seeing these, like, biggest line movements of all time, by the way?
I get them from Fantasy Labs.
All right. I never saw this at 44.5, so I'll say. But.
Well, maybe that was like before the week. I don't know. But so I think the Colts can pretty much do whatever they want here. Over the past 3 weeks, only 2 teams have allowed a higher EPA per play than Pittsburgh. They're still missing Deshaun Elliott, their safety. It's a big loss. It's a loss that has made them very vulnerable on the back end. As you saw, Jordan Love went ballistic last week. Teams facing the Steelers have had a 67% neutral pass rate over the past month. That's the highest in the league. That makes them qualified as a pass funnel defense, guys. So maybe we'll get some inflated dropbacks for Daniel Jones if the game script is right. I will say this: Jonathan Taylor, I call him JT because I know him personally, could still go ballistic here. And I have a funky stat here if I could just share it with you guys.
Please do.
So the Colts are second in the league in success rates on man gap runs. Okay, second in the league. The Steelers are allowing the 4th highest success rate against those rushes. I think this guy could have another just ridiculous game here.
You heard it here, post Jonathan Taylor. Good fantasy. Start him.
I say you start him.
By the way, Denny, your source has that correct. It opened at 44.5. I just wonder if that was like before Sunday or something.
Right. This could be look ahead lines too, which are telling us like every week. I mean, they're telling us every week we see these freaking Colts. They're better and better every single week. Yeah. Oh my God, they're so good.
The Colts they're not has been having me feeling dislocated. I am still not used to this new reality. I'm not used to the new reality, Kyle, of the Steelers not being able to stop anybody. It should be creating like good fantasy numbers on their side. Aaron Rodgers throwing a lot of touchdowns, but not a lot of yards. No one other than DK Metcalf really doing anything. Even Jalen Warren's not doing that much. Are there any Steelers that we actually care about beyond DK Metcalf and Jalen Warren?
I'll throw maybe a note out there for Jonnu Smith. Pat Freiermuth took a really hard tumble in week 8, and he is not practicing as of Wednesday. I didn't see him out there on Thursday as any of the reports. If he doesn't play, we could get Jonnu Smith finally playing a full-time role, which he's only done once or twice this year. In a true shootout environment with a reasonable team total, a tight end running all the routes kind of has to be at least in play as a streamer, albeit I wouldn't make him a priority.
Sorry, I thought you were going to keep talking. I was muted.
No, there's not. Don't look for other Steelers. No.
Nope. So, final word on that game. I guess we didn't talk very long about this one. Listen, even if he's good, it's still Daniel Jones at the end of the day. All right, like it's still Daniel Jones, and
you got to get away from that mindset.
You got to keep it locked. By the way, sorry, Denny. I don't know why I interrupted you there.
He's a good play.
You got to keep it locked to Rotoworld.com for updates on Josh Downs' status. By the way, Michael Pittman Jr. is almost in the top 12 in terms of weekly PPR points. MPJ, he's coming, folks. You cannot stop the MPJ train. You couldn't stop the Cincinnati Bengals train until you could easily again. They score 1 million points. It does not matter. 38 points is never enough for the Bengals. They won't even sniff 38 points if Joe Flacco does not play against the Chicago Bears. Right now, the bookmakers, like fantasy players, they're holding strong. They're being brave. They're pretending Joe Flacco is going to play in this game with his throwing shoulder injury. As of Thursday afternoon, Kyle, it does seem like he's going to play. The Bears were one of Week 8's biggest disappointments. They're going to try to make it up to fantasy managers against this non-existent Bengals defense. But that last weekend against the Ravens was a total disaster for Caleb Williams. And does he have to remain in the top 12 in Cincy? He flunked that smash spot. This is another smash spot. Same thing true for Roma Dunze. What's his practice status?
So the latest I saw, I believe he was out there for a limited session on Thursday. Of note, literally every starting skill position player for the team other than Caleb, I guess, and Colston Loveland, or if you call Cole Kmet the starting tight end. The point is all 3 starting wide receivers plus the 4th wide receiver plus the starting running back all DNP'd on Wednesday. Of note, the Bears have been generally kind of liberal with their Wednesday and even Thursday DNPs. Like DeAndre Swift has already gotten to the point where never practices. Then he goes out and sees 18 touches on Sunday. He's good for it typically. DJ Moore, another player who's been banged up, typically not practicing a ton.
I was going to say, DJ Moore literally went to the hospital and then still played. I don't really know what's going on with the Bears and injuries, I'll say.
Apparently nothing's going on because they just all return and play anyway. The only player who I am pretty confident isn't going to play this week, sadly, is not that relevant for fantasy anyway. It was Luther Burden, who's in concussion protocol, not practicing. So, assuming I think everyone except for Burden is going to be out there this week. Oh, Cole Kmet also practicing. Limited capacity. Maybe that's one that's actually a
Nation. Rise up. Kmet Nation.
Nope, don't think they'll be doing much of that these days. I will say, you're gonna have Rome. You're gonna have, of course, number 2 wide receiver Olamide Zaccheaus, number 3 wide receiver DJ Moore. If you've got all the wide receivers out there, plus you've got both potentially starting tight ends and you're starting running back, Caleb in a great matchup. You do kind of have to start him.
He has 2 passing touchdowns in the past month.
Caleb. All right, cool. Don't start him. Look, I think what the Bears have done as an organization this year has been really impressive under Ben Johnson. And I think the fact that they are weathering some really, I think bad performances from Caleb says a lot about Ben Johnson, his offense, and what he's put together. But I don't think Caleb's played particularly well. Every single accuracy metric you can chart says he's still arguably the least accurate quarterback in the NFL. He has cleaned up the sack taking a ton, which I think is allowing them to survive some of these games, but that's largely what they're doing. I will say I'm not going to, fly in the face of Vegas bookmakers and say that their massive team total should be ignored. I still think this is a decent starting spot for Caleb, but it's to the point where these are the only spots you can start him is complete true shootouts. If we don't think both teams are going for 25 to 30 points, I'm probably not trying to start him.
And that might not even happen, Denny. If Joe Flacco does not play, he's been cooking more than basically anyone could have expected. Even gunslinger, one last job, Joe Flacco. I didn't really think, I thought this would end with a shootout. And everyone in the hospital or arrested by the feds. It was a sting or whatever. Who was the mole? Who was the rat? That has not been happening so far. But what did I write here? Oh my God. He injured his throwing shoulder. So it'll be totally over were Jake Browning to be under center. Again, right now the tea leaves suggest it will be Joe Flacco.
Yeah. So I really did look powerfully into this, and as the Bengals starter, Flacco and Browning have shockingly similar metrics and peripherals.
Might need to cut his mic. Might need to do that.
cut his mic.
Might need to cut his mic.
The difference, from what I can tell, is that Browning faced two of the most ferocious pass rushes in the league.
Mic cutting intensifies.
And Flacco faced no pressure.
You were all trying to find out why Joe Flacco faced no pressure. Maybe it's because the defenses actually think he can complete a pass.
I'm not. Look, I'm a Flacco guy. Okay, like he's my.
It does not sound like it. I think we were kicking you out of the fan club.
Yeah, real curious. Real
older
curious.
millennial brother. All I'm saying is that I am not ready to say no. It's totally over if Browning starts. The Bears' pass defense over the past month has been the worst in the league, almost by any measure. Okay, really terrible pass defense. They're so desperate that they have to sign Chauncey Gardner, whatever his name is, who
CJGJ.
Teams, okay, so he'll be with them for the next 3 weeks, but
he will soon fight Caleb Williams in practice.
That's happening.
It is happening.
Yeah, no, lock that in. So I think it's a good environment. Jake Browning is a downgrade, but it's not over for these.
All right, come on, man.
It's not over because it's a good match.
The reason Browning, it was bad matchups. The reason he gets teed off on and Flacco doesn't is, again, defenses actually have to respect Joe Flacco's ability to complete a pass, and he can get the ball out quickly. He's playing point guard.
There's something to
I actually do think that's why.
I'm just saying, like, accuracy wise, like, they're the same.
I could see that maybe.
Yeah. So I look, Jamar Chase, like the whole thing where he was like trending toward 300 targets, literally. That's not happening anymore. But with Browning back, I would say. Like,
hold on, but it's probably gonna be Flacco. Don't confuse our listeners. At least as of Thursday afternoon, it's probably gonna be Flacco.
I'm a little skeptical, but right now it seems like Flacco season will continue.
Denny's just imagining himself with an AC joint sprain and was like, I wouldn't play, so I don't think Flacco will.
He's also remembering this guy's got a lot of loyalty to Jake Browning. The Browning hive it runs deep. The blood runs deep there. And Denny still feels a lot of loyalty.
You're not ready to pull the plug yet.
You're not ready to remove your 3 Jake Browning tattoos yet.
Yeah. By the way, Jamar Chase has 54 targets, most ever over a 3-game span. Wow. That only goes back to 1978. But to say Joe Flacco has been relentlessly targeting Jamar Chase, we'll be putting it mildly. Kyle, is Chase Brown back? Speaking of people who've been helped by Joe Flacco, there's actually space in the Bengals running game right now. Or is he just no longer posting bottom 1 percentile outcomes? Like, where are we actually at with Chase Brown?
He looks pretty back per the numbers since Joe Flacco took over. That is weeks 6, 7, and 8. Chase Brown is PFF's number 2 graded running back. He's their second running back charted in yards after contact per carry. He has forced the second most missed tackles and has the 13th best breakaway run rate. That is to say, by every measure, he has not just been fine. He's not just been improved. He has been really good ever since Joe Flacco took over. I think that's probably outkicking the coverage a little bit too. I don't actually think he's the second best running back in the NFL, but to your point, the fact that Joe Flacco actually demands the attention of defenses really has helped out Chase Brown. I do think even if Flacco is back, a very banged up, maybe not able to throw super well Joe Flacco, that could end up being just as bad as Chase Brown. Like,
yeah, you never want to go wince mode.
No, I mean,
he's going wince mode in his throwing shoulder too.
Honestly, I thought you said wince as in like.
I know,
like
it was a bit of a
that
play on words.
Too.
Yeah, Carson Wentz, by the way, pretty bold by the Vikings coaching staff to allow Carson Wentz to die on the football field
to sacrifice him.
It's being sacrificed.
Man, JJ McCarthy better be good. That's all I'm saying.
I know JJ McCarthy. You got to feel. If you're the young man, you have to feel a little guilty watching that. Do you not?
Well, also, I was going to say maybe JJ McCarthy better be really bad, so you can say like, no, it made sense for them to play Wentz through this. Like, of course they did.
But if you're McCarthy and you see this guy literally like weeping on the sideline. Like, don't you have to like come up to the coach and be like, you got to throw in the towel, like put me in, man,
or just more? Maybe it's the opposite. Like, wow, they really prefer to play this guy to me. That's not great.
You got to imagine JJ McCarthy went up to Kevin O'Connell, was like, please get Wentz out of there, get Max Brosmer in the lineup.
We'll talk about JJ McCarthy in just a second because Denny, real quick, anything on the Bears backfield? Kyle Monangai mixing in for a pretty consistent weekly amount of snaps at this point.
First of all, it's a really good spot. Bears over the past month have the fourth best in rush yards before contact. Bengals are fourth worst in that category. So should be good. Of course, we saw Breece Hall go crazy last week against the Bengals. The Bears are sort of establishing it of late. Since week 5, only 4 teams have a lower neutral pass rate than Chicago. So, kind of taking the ball out of Caleb's hands. Like Kyle said, insanely inaccurate. Like, that's just the only way to describe this guy at this point.
He's gone Trevor Lawrence mode.
So I think Monangai with a certain kind of game script can be somewhat interesting. He had 13 carries against the Saints 2 weeks ago. He had 7 carries against the Ravens last week. Of course, that was not only in garbage time. Sorry, I was going to say that, but that's not true. If they keep establishing it, DeAndre Swift can see 20 touches. Maybe Monangai can see 8 or something like that and be interesting as a second flex or something. But game script just has to be just right here.
Finally forced into starting J.J. McCarthy after weeks of trotting out a ragdolled Carson Wentz. The Vikings arrive in Detroit as nearly 2-score dogs, Denny. McCarthy's first 2 starts were a complete disaster. Had he not faced the aforementioned worst pass defense in the league, Chicago, it might have been like the worst 2-game starting stretch we've seen in recent memory. Will this time be any different against the Lions defense that is rested coming off its bye week? Lions really good against the run, a little more uncertain against the pass. What are we expecting to see from one of the stranger football stories in a while, J.J. McCarthy?
Yeah, it's a really tough spot for this kid to come back on. He says his ankle is healthy after 2 months, and that's good. Just to review, in the first 2 weeks of the season, J.J. McCarthy had the second worst completion rate over expected. He was he was top 7 in air yards per attempt. So he was pushing it downfield, but also inaccurate. I wanted to mention that under pressure, he really collapsed. He was 8 for 23 for 2.6 air yards per attempt when under pressure in those 2 games. Detroit is top 10 in both pressure and hurry rate. Boy, oh boy, it does not seem like an ideal fit for my guy JJ.
We were not crazy, by the way. This has become like an online flame war, but I mean, come on. Like, JJ McCarthy could have played a month ago, right? Like, we're not imagining this. Yeah. I really do wonder. I'm sure he tweaked his ankle or whatever, but I can't get. He literally didn't miss a play. He got up immediately and ran back to the huddle. I just gaslighting's been an overused word the past 10 years, but I feel like we were not.
Oh, we totally get.
Pat, you would have eaten this up. I don't know if you were. No, you were not traveling yet at this point. Did you see the? I think.
Oh yeah, it leapt like 40-inch vertical. JJ McCarthy.
Oh my god, the vertical when like a Chargers player got tackled and kind of tumbles onto the sideline. And dude, JJ could have hurdled 3 guys at that point. He looked spry, and again was not active as the starting quarterback.
Just a strange situation. Hopefully we see something different than we saw weeks 1 and 2, because I like when young players are good, and I do not want these Viking skill players to be irrelevant. Speaking of elsewhere on the Vikings, though, the backfield with J.J. McCarthy coming back, Kyle, takes on much greater importance. They're going to have much greater rushing success than they've had so far this year. How do we expect it to look with 10 more days for Aaron Jones to have rested up following his Week 8 return?
Yeah, I mean, last week it was a true committee. Aaron Jones got half the snaps, ran about half the routes, got just shy of half the carries. It was as ugly as you could expect, and I think that is going to be exacerbated by the fact that they are 8.5-point dogs against a Lions team that, like you said, if they're going to stop you, their defense is, again, as it seems like it's been for the past 2 years, really banged up. But if they're going to stop you, it's either going to be through pressures or it's going to be through stopping your run games. They don't have they have a hurt secondary right now. So to me, it's like not a great matchup for game script or matchup in terms of the defense. And it's not an offense we expect to put up a lot of points. Obviously, Vegas doesn't expect them to put up a lot of points in JJ's first game back. I would try to avoid playing either of these players.
Man, I didn't know what to do in the rankings with these guys. I'll say I wanted to get Aaron Jones in the top 24. I ended up not doing that for a lot of the reasons you laid out. I do have him like RB 28, which also feels uncomfortably high. Vikings are just one of the most fascinating teams of Week 9. Obviously, extremely fascinated to see JJ McCarthy, and very fascinated just to see what they do with this backfield. Denny, any thoughts on the Lions at all? They're one of the most straightforward teams we have in fantasy football.
I have some thoughts. Real quick. Vikings have been scorched on deep throws this year. They're allowing the highest completion rate over expected on attempts of 20-plus yards. It could be JMO season. We have Lions OC, Johnny Morton, saying the following, quote, I looked at everything. This is during the bye week, okay? I looked at everything. I'm going to do a better job with that. But there has been opportunities where it just didn't happen. It's not like we aren't going to try to target Jameson Williams. So that was the biggest thing. So I looked at everything and I failed him. That's what I told him. I failed him and I have to do a better job.
You heard it here, folks. If you are playing the 12th place team in your league, watch out. They're dangerous. They're frisky.
I feel very confident in one JMO long catch this week. That's what I was saying.
The Vikings make it happen with the blitzes. Even Jared Goff is going to beat these blitzes at some point.
So that's the thing. Highest blitz rate in the league. It leaves the secondary exposed. Maybe we could get one. Maybe we could get lucky with one.
JMO, if you're listening, Halloween's almost over. We need to bulldoze these spirit Halloweens in my backyard.
I need it worse than ever.
Worse than you could ever imagine. Good time to take a break as Denny and I regroup. We'll be right back after this. The Washington, D.C. Commanders are back in primetime again in Week 9. Tune in at 7 p.m. Eastern for Football Night in America as we take you up to kickoff between the Seahawks and Commanders in our nation's capital. Getting Jaden Daniels back for the second time this season, at least we hope. I don't even know if this is official yet, Kyle. The Commanders host Seattle as field goal underdogs. This time, Daniels will be playing with his top two receivers finally healthy at the same time as what I wrote before Terry McLaurin was announced as injured yet again and out for Week 9. What kind of defensive matchup is this for a Commandos team that really needs a win? And is anybody getting targets beyond a still hobbled Deebo Samuel and an ageless Zach Ertz?
Yeah, I mean, it is a tough matchup in general, and it's honestly not stunning. It is emblematic of how good the Seahawks team, both offense and defense, is, that it's at Washington, and the Seahawks are favored by a field goal. Like, that is well beyond crossing just the home field advantage. They're a meaningfully better team. To your point, we don't know for sure that Jaden Daniels is back. Dan Quinn kind of sounded optimistic. I've been penciling him in as if he's going to play.
It could be a Lamar-style rug pull. It doesn't seem like that's in play. Yeah,
it is not impossible that happens. That type of stuff isn't likely, but certainly like a check your lineups before these inactives come out. Or I guess this is the night game, so you have to at least have maybe a contingency plan of what would be Marcus Mariota. In terms of the wide receivers, Deebo Samuel has already been ruled, Terry McLaurin has already been ruled out. Deebo seems like he's maybe getting healthier. I didn't see him on the injury report with the heel issue. I'm sure he is.
That feels like cope by the Commanders. He's fine. I mean, we're not even on the
honestly, he's definitely still playing through it. But maybe this is like he's as healthy as he's going to get. Is he healthy? He's as healthy as he's going to get is what we'll say. We saw last week that after Terry McLaurin left, he only ran about half the routes because he re-injured that quad issue. Luke McCaffrey ended up running the most routes among the non-Deebo players. But we saw Chris Moore take on that role for almost the entirety of Terry McLaurin's previous absence. I do think if you're just picking who runs the most non-Deebo Samuel routes, probably is Chris Moore. Could take flyers on both of them, but honestly, I don't have a ton of faith in this passing game, even if Jaden Daniels returns right now. To me, it's just Deebo Samuel and it's just Zach Ertz, and don't really worry about the ancillary pieces of a team that's projected to lose against a good defense at home.
Chris Moore will be happy to hear that I just repainted my Titanic deck chairs. And boy, I'm very excited to play Chris Moore in our 14-team leagues. Denny, same question I asked you about the Detroit Lions. Seahawks, one of the narrowest teams in fantasy football. Anything of note as they return from their bye week?
It's a good slot matchup against Washington. So I guess that means Cooper Kupp or AJ Barner, depending on who's
Denny finally admits it. JSN, not just a slot merchant.
No. Well, I mean, come on, man. I've been mea culping this for.
You have been, but you've also been praying for a slump. You've been praying for like 3 straight weeks.
No. I've given up on that prospect. He's clearly Jerry Rice 2.0 mixed with Terrell Owens. There's no coming back from that take. So I'm not going to try. So yeah, that's what I got. Maybe Cooper Kupp gets involved a little bit, but really, this is just Sam Darnold staring down JSN every play, and it works.
My only note on the Seahawks is that it's now or never, obviously, for the Kenneth Walker usage to change, where if they come out of their bye week and it's still Zach Charbonnet on every single most important snap, I would say you could give up the ghost on Kenneth Walker getting the plays that actually matters. He'll, of course, continue to rush 16 times for 80 yards. That'll be totally fine, I guess, in your RB2-3 spot. But something needs to change this week for Kenneth Walker if it's ever going to change. JCM check-in, Kyle, remains one of the most vexing players in fantasy football. They're still rotating all kinds of guys behind him. He's got a decent floor. The ceiling's still a bit elusive. JSM check-in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if he does have a decent floor, just because among players who are like, oh, he's mostly a two-down guy, but maybe you get a catch or two, he's the least one you can count on in almost in the entire NFL for like, man, if this game goes sideways, at least I can pencil in a catch or two. He is running routes. That's the thing, is it's not like they sub him out for every single passing play. He's getting between 30 and 40% of the routes, but among 30 running backs with at least 200 routes this year, he ranks 28th in targets per route run. Part of that is because he has mobile quarterbacks who generally aren't going to be looking to target their running backs. Part of that is because he has never at any point in his college or short NFL career been a pass catcher. So he's just getting work on two downs, but he also has to share carries with his quarterback. And they also mix in a little bit, not a ton, but they do mix in a little bit of Chris Rodriguez or of Jeremy McNichols. So to me, as underdogs against a good defense, much like the ancillary wide receivers, he's a very tough start. I mean, you saw it last week when they're not competitive. He is a complete non-factor for fantasy. They're projected to be competitive this week, but there's a chance they come out and just lose kind of cleanly. And in that scenario, you're unlikely to score a touchdown. You're unlikely to catch passes. You're hoping for like one catch and a long run, and maybe he finds the end zone, maybe he doesn't. But it's hard at this point to call him an RB2.
I still don't understand how any football player at any position could be good enough of a football player to reach the NFL and cannot catch the football. Like even like a guard should be able to catch the football in the NFL. Like
every Lions guard can catch the football, like three of them.
You're by definition one of the best football players on planet Earth, one of the best football players of all time, and you somehow reach the league and cannot catch the football. I can't say I understand that. I can't say I ever understand the San Francisco 49ers. They finally went to the Mac Jones well one too many times, Mr. Denny Carter, and they now seem to be getting back Brock Purdy for Week 9, although as longtime Shanny and scholars know, he cannot wait to rug pull in the situation. It's Mac Jones after all, or just like a third quarterback you didn't even know was on the team.
Yeah.
But for now, it seems like it's going to be Brock Purdy. What would Brock Purdy's return mean for a team that's also still somehow missing Ricky Pearsall? For some reason was not put on injured reserve and doesn't even seem remotely close to playing. What is the state of this ever-injured 49er skill core?
I mean, depending on if Juwan Jennings is slightly healthier, I know he's dealing with a multitude of injuries. I think Purdy back under center could be good for Jennings. They seem to really click. Purdy seems to look his way much more often than Mac Jones has. I do think back to a couple weeks ago when the Niners played on Sunday night against, I can't remember who. Was it the Rams or no?
It makes no difference.
Anyway, he had told the team it's going to be a McCaffrey night. It's going to be a Christian McCaffrey night. And I think that's kind of what we have here against a Giants run defense that has pretty much collapsed over the past month. Since week 4, the Giants are allowing the highest rate of rush yards before contact and the third highest rushing success rate. I feel like the Niners are just going to keep it really, really run heavy here. And that doesn't really open up a lot of targets for everybody else. I think like a guy like Kittle is a pretty thin play, but you got to play him. You
got to play him.
I'll note, Shanny was not very non-committal, like surprisingly non-committal earlier this week about Purdy playing. I actually don't think he plays.
Oh my God. This team, Shanny, I mean, whatever. So by some accounts, doing his best coaching job ever. Enough. Like this era it's got to end. It's got to end, right?
It'll never end.
It'll never end. It truly will never end. You know what I thought would never end? Was, as you know, I'm a Disney dad. I'm getting ready to get on the Disney Skyliner, as one does, at Disney World last week, when all of a sudden everyone I know is texting me, well, just saw the worst football injury I've ever seen in my entire life. Cam Skadaboo, somehow 4 to 6 month return timeline. He might have escaped with the best possible news out of an awful situation. Same is not true for fantasy managers. Cam Skadaboo's done for the regular season, the postseason too, if the Giants happen to make it. What is the outlook in a post-Skadaboo backfield that had finally been settled. You could say what you will about Cam, maybe not efficient, maybe he was overhyped. He was a lot better than Tyrone Tracy. Kyle, what is left behind after Cam Scadaboo's season-ending injury?
It kind of looks like Tyrone Tracy workhorse season. I mean, he outcarried Devin Singletary 10-2 last week, outcaught him, I believe it was 2-1. Again, to your point, I don't think he's going to be nearly as efficient as Scadabo was. It's not like Scadabo was the most efficient running back either. He was just a stark improvement from what the team had last year and early in the season when Tracy was the starting running back. But, I mean, you get a running back who's going to see 75% of the touches on a team that looks like they're going to be competitive in this game. They're only 2.5-point dogs. It's a high total. He's probably more of an RB2 than players who I think are like better than him in like Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. His role will dwarf that of Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. I think JCM is a more fun, more explosive back, but guys who do not stand a chance to catch 2 passes, you have to rank Tracy ahead of that type of player.
Only thing I'll say, I don't really know why this would apply here, Kyle, but we always talk about like there's a difference between when someone gets injured in game and when they have a week to game plan. You think they would have trusted Devin Singletary to come in that game last week, so it probably was not that. But I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe there were certain like blitz pickup packages, third down packages that were installed for Devin Singletary this week, but he could have played in that game last Sunday. So I think I agree with your Tyrone Tracy analysis there. Denny, anyone in this New York Giants from a pass catching perspective, offense, I don't know what I just said there. Anyone worth anyone besides Wan'Dale Robinson worth talking about? It's such a dire situation. I can't find the words.
2 guys. We have a sicko tight end playing Theo Johnson, Daniel Bellinger, who's been running a lot of routes lately. The Giants. Let me
be clear. No, Theo Johnson is not a sicko tight end play. Daniel Bellinger, that would qualify as a sicko tight end play. Just to correct you there.
What do you have Theo Johnson at?
He's like tight end 18 or 19. I mean, he's not ranked good, but I expect when Denny Carter says sicko, I expect better than Theo Johnson is all I'm
when Denny Carter says sicko, you're like, so what are you projecting for 2 Wildcat snaps?
I know, yeah. When Denny Carter says sicko, I'm expecting like to hear like a 2-minute Roman Wilson case. Continue, sorry.
Well, all right. Not so sicko. Elite tight end play, Theo Johnson. So the Niners have given up 8, 7, and 7 tight end targets over the past 3 games. Daniel Bellinger is dealing with a neck injury. He's not practicing, could be out. I think that'll open up some more targets, obviously, for Johnson. Theo Johnson has been targeted on 20% of his routes since the dark since the Dart vibes takeover. And he's been running 76% of the routes. So he's out there. I think the Giants will be playing from behind here. You could do worse. And I also want to mention Darius Slayton led the team last week in air yards, had a long touchdown called back on a ticky-tack offensive pass interference call. Jalen Hyatt seems to be all the way in the doghouse, inside several doghouses that are inside other doghouses. So Darius Slayton, high variance, wide receiver 4 type guy.
A nesting doll of doghouses for Jalen Hyatt is not what you're going to see. By the way, 49ers, Giants, this is the kind of game where whoever loses this game is going to feel like the end of an era. Dable's out. All right, Shanny, like we had our fun. It's been almost 10 years. We had our fun, but you just lost to Brian Dable. Like enough. All right, enough.
The Niners are not losing this game. They're just not.
Famous last words when it comes to San Francisco 49ers. Off by after playing some of the worst football by any team in recent memory, the Las Vegas Raiders find themselves home underdogs against the Jaguars. Not great, Kyle Dvorchak, but Brock Bowers is returning. How does this change things for both Vegas and for fantasy managers?
I don't think, look, I love Brock Bowers, right? I don't think he is going to all of a sudden change the fortunes of this team, but I do think he'll probably change the fortunes of your fantasy team. If you're still clinging to playoff hopes, he did look like, even as banged up, he was top 6 in yards after the catch, PFF receiving grade, yards per route run. And then in week 1, they strangely played him in this part-time role, which they kind of flirted with during the preseason too. And then of course he gets hurt and they say full-time role for you. Let's up your snaps a lot after your knee is imploded. But I mean, as frustrating as that was, it does make me think that the week 1 was an aberration. Like they're not going to try and play him part-time. Also, if they do, who cares? He went for like 100 yards in that game because he's so good on a per touch basis. It just doesn't matter if they limit his snaps. So very obviously a top 5 fantasy tight end. It will certainly help Geno Smith, but to the point that you're playing Geno Smith in anything other than like a desperate super flex spot, probably not.
By the way, the Raiders are 1-0 when Brock Bowers is a part-time player. Beat the New England Patriots. All I'm saying. Denny, you've been grinding Travis Hunter, Brian Thomas Jr. news. We know Brian Thomas Jr. Playing through a shoulder injury. Seems like he's going to play. Got it banged up in London week 7, whatever. A lot of bad things happen in London. A lot of reports that Travis Hunter could maybe finally get a look. Kind of did in week 7 as the wide receiver 1. How do you make sense of like the swirling noise, the injury reports, just kind of like the chaos right now with the Jaguars' top 2 wide receivers?
Someone very familiar with the Jaguars' offensive situation told me this. This person spoke with an executive who works for the Jaguars. Said, "quote We need to get the ball in Travis Hunter's hands." And so I
not a bit, by the way. Denny has a Jaguar source. That's
right. This person also expects Brian Thomas to play. So just for what that's worth, I'm skeptical it's going to work out that way. And there's clearly something wrong with Brian Thomas, either physically or between the ears. I mean, he's dropping passes in the middle. Kyle suggested maybe he's afraid of absorbing contact because of the shoulder, which has been a lingering issue for him. I thought that was a really good point. We talked about it on one of the podcasts we did this week, Tuesdays, I think. And while we were dispatching search teams for you in Florida, Pat. So I'm glad they found you
deep inside the dark heart of Epcot.
Yeah, they pulled you up into a helicopter and got you back to Missouri. Anyway, so the thing with Hunter is that he actually has been more efficient as a slot receiver than I thought he had been. Like when I looked into the numbers, like at yards after the catch and stuff, he's actually been pretty good in that role. So maybe it works. I'm not totally dismissing that. I do think Brian Thomas is the kind of player who's usually not going to be the wide receiver 2 on his own dang team, So that's those are my thoughts. But you're starting both these guys again, especially against a Raiders defense that is really, really awful, especially against the pass.
Just awful. It is fascinating. Both these teams are coming out of their bye week, right? We're gonna have like an adjustment off between the Raiders and Jaguars. And Kyle, I'm wondering if one of the adjustments is going to be really good stuff in the Jaguars wide receivers from Denny, by the way. Could one of the adjustments finally be curtailing Travis Etienne's workload? He looked like he might be a random league winner in like weeks 1 and 2, and he's just been like the same old frustrating Travis Etienne since then. Can we still call him an RB2? He's one guy in the ranks every week. I'm like, well, his workload's an RB2. Like he never produces as an RB2. Do we expect the status quo to hold with Travis Etienne?
Yeah, I thought that was notable that before the bye, Bashal Tutin hit season highs in snap share. It was his second highest game of the year in terms of carry share. I believe season high in route rate as well. These weren't monstrous numbers. He was still the clear number 2 running back, but he went from a very distant RB2 to closing the gap on Travis Etienne. And maybe I do think that was by design. We've seen Etienne's efficiency really drop off the map since the first month of the season. In the first month of the season, he had 5 carries of 15 plus yards. Since then, only 3 games they have their bye, so not a full month of games. But in the 3 games since then, binoculars, small number, can't see it. 0. In fact, 0 long runs in his past 3 games. And, I talked about this on Tuesday's show, I think, with Denny. He's a player who typically has worn down over the season. They invested and talked a lot about Bashal Tutin being a bigger part of this offense or being a big part of this offense in the offseason. I think it probably works out for the better for Travis Etienne, maybe not in terms of his raw counting stats, but in terms of at least his efficiency, for Tutin to continue to see more work. You are obviously still starting Travis Etienne over him, and in a spot where they're favored over against a very lowly Raiders team, maybe you get one final week of him as an RB2 as like a very clear top 24 option. But this is one where we're monitoring the usage closely. And if they both split the usage a little more evenly and then get harder matchups going forward, it would be very conceivable for me for Travis Etienne to drop out of the top 24 after this week.
Real quick, over under for Ashton Genty carries this week. What are we setting it at?
16.5.
Yeah, that sounds about right. The Jags are middle of the road in every rush defense metric, so not like an intimidating.
I'm going to say 19.5.
Oh, cool.
Wouldn't that be the most? That's got to be the most Pete Carroll adjustment of all time coming out of the bye week.
It was either Carroll or Chip Kelly too, who talked about. I mean, obviously, like, what are you going to say? Like, what do you want to do with your run game? We want to get Genty.
We want to get Genty fewer carries. Yeah, I guess.
But they did talk about it earlier this week, or maybe over the bye, where they said, "Yeah, we got to create opportunities for Genty." That's what you're going to say, but that's also what you say before he gets 20 carries.
I would also say fact check true that they do need to do that. They're one team that really does need to establish a run as Geno goes retirement mode. The ascending New England Patriots host the flatlining. It seems a bit harsh. Falcons as relatively modest 5.5-point favorites. Denny, Michael Penix, another uncertain quarterback health situation. He appears to be returning. We don't actually know though. But no matter who is starting for this team, this Falcons passing attack has just been kind of feeling like DOA every week. They show up. Some people get their counting stats, but just what are the prospects this week? Whether it's Michael Penix, whether it's Kirk Cousins, Drake London, also banged up. We don't entirely know his status.
I think the Falcons will be in a situation here where they'll be forced to go a little more pass heavy than they're comfortable with. The Patriots allow the second lowest rate of rush yards before contact. The Browns are the only team that's better. And last week, the Dolphins, not a good run defense at all by any measure. They just piled guys up at the line and said, we're going to stop your run game. We're not scared of your quarterback, who was Kirk Cousins, to be fair. And we're not scared of your receivers because London was out. If London doesn't play again, if Cousins is back under center, I think we'll see the same sort of situation. And so it makes it a really bleak situation for Bijan Robinson somehow as well. I did want to know if Kirk Cousins gets the start, 22% check down rate last week. That led the league easily. Mostly that went to Kyle Pitts, 9 catches on 9 targets. He ran 100% of the routes. I mean, metrics king, Kyle Pitts. So, he would be interesting, but like we probably need Penix back in there because Cousins was abysmal.
It can't take another week of that. That can't happen again. But my theory, by the way, Drake London was perfectly healthy. But the Falcons, they're willing, in order to punish Kirk Cousins, ordered Drake London to sit out. To be clear, I do not actually believe this. But you can imagine if it were true. Kyle, you can imagine if this were true, what if Travion Henderson had a good game? He actually did last week. Ramondre Stevenson injured his toe. I mean, Travion, by Travion standards, had a good game. What is the latest update on this Patriots backfield? They keep signing people. They're adding people to the practice squad. It seems like Ramondre and true risk of missing this contest. What are we telling people in the Pats backfield?
Denny, you and I were both here on Sunday. He had a fumble inside the 5 with like minutes left on the clock at the end, right? I'm not going to be honest,
or going to be honest. That's a week 8 detail that eluded me.
Yeah. I'm correct with that, right?
I wish I had known that.
Yeah, Aditya was very clear about that. It seemed like a big.
Yeah. Pat didn't mention it. I was like, oh my God, did I misremember that? Am I like reverse coping? I'm like, it's over. No, it is over. So to your point, 10 for 75 is obviously a good rushing line for Trevion standards. And it's maybe his best, probably his best of the year. And it's super ironic that like a week after Vrabel says like, we got to stop worrying about fumbling more. Trevion's like, you got it, boss. But the thing is, it may not matter this week. Ramondre did not practice on Wednesday with a toe issue. On Thursday, I did not see that he was out on practice, or it was reported that he wasn't seen at practice. Haven't seen their official report, but that's pretty reliable. 2 DNPs to start the week. It does not look like he's going to play. I don't think this means a Trevion true takeover, but if you spent as much draft capital as you did on this guy, I still have some faith that they will at least give him more carries than they will Terrell Jennings. And if they're going to have anyone running routes, it will also probably be Trevion Henderson. So as frustrating as he has been all year, and as much as like you can envision a rug pull, I can see the rug getting pulled. If you're not starting him now, how did you roster him this long to not start him?
Only the most beautiful Turkish carpet getting pulled under Travion Henderson this week. Denny, Patriots pass catchers update. Kayshon Boutte is kind of like back, or not, I don't know. Not that he ever went away. Not that he's ever there. He's been more consistently involved. What's going on with the Pats pass?
Denny, Kayshon Boutte is more of an idea than he is a football player. What do you do with that?
He is. He's an idea who headlined Regression Files this week because he has converted 78% of his air yards into real, actual, tangible, edible yards. That's the 3rd highest rate in the league. And he's the only downfield guy who has even close to that sort of conversion rate. I mean, this partly has to do with Drake May being really good. Kyle did nothing wrong, said nothing wrong. Can it last? The profile is shaky. That's what I'll say about him. You're starting him, I think, in 12-team leagues, but don't get too excited. I wanted to mention just quickly, Mac Hollins last week, second among all Patriots wide receivers in routes. He saw 22% of the team's targets. He was targeted on almost 30% of his routes. Where did that come from?
Someone's having a laugh, I think, because all that was about. Like, maybe Drake May is just so good. Like, I'm going to make Mac Hollins a thing for 1 week for no reason at all.
Man,
having a laugh at our expense, but hopefully that does not happen again. Coming off a road destruction of the Steelers, the Packers head home as 2-score favorites against the Panthers, Kyle. It does not appear. Bryce Young will be back after missing 1 game with a apparently high ankle sprain. I've been told that's usually a 2-month injury for a quarterback. Does it even matter at this point? Bryce Young back for the Carolina Panthers.
Yes, no, I don't know. He is clearly better than Andy Dalton. I mean, Dalton just got dog walked last week. He ranks 41st. Andy Dalton ranks 41st out of 44 qualified quarterbacks in EPA per dropback.
Yeah, Kyle, sorry, you're in the middle of a point, but we are getting like an Animorphs situation where there's the Joe Flacco fill-in, then it gets a little blurrier. There's the Carson Wentz fill-in, then it gets even blurrier, and it's the Andy Dalton level.
This was the worst fill-in, I think. No, it was worse than Kirk Cousins. No, it was definitely worse than Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
He ranks 35th in PFF passing grade this year. Bryce Young, not great, not even good this year, but roughly 10 spots higher than him in both EPA per play and PFF passing grade. Bryce Young is a fringe starting NFL quarterback based on how he's played this year. Andy Dalton is hardly a backup caliber NFL quarterback. For fantasy purposes, though, the reason I was unsure if it matters, like, you're probably still not starting Bryce. You should not be starting Bryce Young, to be clear.
No.
And you just should be starting Rico, and you should be starting T-Mac, and that's it. So nothing really changed with those.
We'll see about Chuba Hubbard in a minute. We'll ask you about that, Kyle. But Denny, as feared, Christian Watson coming back from the Packers didn't create any fantasy value of his own, did seem to hurt Romeo Dobbs's, did seem to further destroy Matthew Golden's. What is this Packers receiver rotation looking like after 1 week with Christian Watson back in the mix?
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about this on the show. I believe on maybe on Monday's show, the waiver wire show, but like the Matthew Golden's prospects tanked last week with Christian Watson back in the fold. I wouldn't be surprised if that either doesn't change or actually maybe even gets worse for Matthew Golden.
Yeah, they were playing the worst pass defense in the entire NFL, at least in terms of yardage allowed last week. And Matthew,
and also this team really likes Christian Watson. They really want him to succeed. And at his best, he's a pretty exciting player, if volatile, a pretty exciting player. So you have to keep that in mind. I mean, Dobbs is still the de facto wide receiver 1 for whatever that's worth. Are they going to throw a lot here? Probably not, because they're 100-point favorites and the Panthers can be run on. Yeah, I'm actually writing this game up for my matchup column, otherwise known as the run/pass funnel report. If you guys want to check it out. But basically, I think everybody is a thin bet here for the Packers, except for Tucker Kraft is in a good spot again. You're starting him anyway, but the Panthers are giving it up big time to tight ends.
Kyle, take us home on this one with a Rico versus Hubbard update. Dave Canales seemed like maybe he was waving the white flag. Like, all right, yeah. Like, all right, Rico's better. I admit it. You got me on this one. Is that the update? Or can we finally trust Rico inside the top 18 again?
Yeah, I took it as even more than a maybe of waving the white flag. I think it was a whole bed sheet that he was just tossing all over Bank of America Stadium. Speaking, I believe it was on Monday, he was saying this. Canales said, Chuba has meant a lot to this team. No, past tense, meant a lot to this team. Wanted, again, past tense, to give him an opportunity following his calf injury. He then went on to add, we cannot ignore the fact that Rico has been exceptional. Just like, again, this is not a numbers take in that if you just look at the numbers over the past 2 weeks, it has been a true committee, a committee that has been hilariously not based on who's been more efficient. Canales is telling us what I think is everything we need to know, is that they gave Chuba the opportunity, and maybe his opportunity comes back again, maybe as he gets farther removed from this hamstring injury. But as it pertains to week 9, I think you're probably projecting a 2-to-1 split of carries in favor of Rico. It's a horrendous matchup, road underdogs of just shy of 2 whole touchdowns. But Rico has been so good this year, and he's still been a better pass catcher, not an elite pass catcher, but a better pass catcher than Chuba as well, that how could you not play him? Like, the Panthers aren't going to be favored in a lot of games. I get this is a tough spot, but that's like Rico looks good enough to win in tough spots. You're playing him.
He does, and this could be the classic. Our only shot at winning this game is making it as short as possible.
That's exactly right. It's going to take a lot to knock the Panthers off of the run-heavy script here.
It is, but not the tense you wanted to hear if you were Chuba, by the way. That's past 10. And that was maybe present. Okay, that was past. Ooh, that one was past.
There was too much past.
Google past participle. But
yeah, I know. What does past participle mean? Let's look into this one a little more strongly. Chuba, we're thinking of you. We're thinking of our audience as we take a short break. We'll be right back after this. The NASCAR Championship is at hand. 4 final contenders line up in the Arizona desert, and only one will be crowned champion. The NASCAR Championship from Phoenix this Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock. It's a dry heat out there. It's actually very lovely this time of year in Arizona. Check out the Arizona Fall League if you have never done so. Denny, the Chargers got their groove back against the Vikings and are now visiting the collapsed Tennessee Titans, your Titans. They've been terrible ever since you made them your team. Ladd McConkey has been cooking while Quentin Johnston has been struggling. Are we back where we thought this was going to be this summer when it comes to the Chargers receiver corps?
Okay, real quick. The emergence of Rondé Gadsden the fourth has really hurt Quentin Johnston's fantasy floor. And honestly, I don't know if he has much of a ceiling, but he definitely doesn't have a floor anymore. He's basically out there just running sprints down the sidelines, whereas before Gadsden's emergence, he was seeing more primary stuff, more easy button stuff. Over the past 2 games, Quentin Johnston has only 10% of the team's air yards, only 5 targets. Gadsden, 13 targets, Keenan Allen, 19. Ladd McConkey, 24 over those 2 games.
Many are calling it the Ladissance.
Some are calling it that. Yeah, I've heard it. I was in a coffee shop and people were whispering and saying the Ladissance. And I said that's right. But so this Quentin Johnston thing, I don't think it's a situation where you can be like, he ran cold last week, whatever. I think it's more dire than that. I think you need to think about what to do with him in 12-team leagues.
It could also just be Denny, a situation where when he was healthy, it was great, but that he's a guy who can't afford to be playing at less than 100% health, and he might not be 100% health after he missed time, and his window might have opened and shut. It's still a small sample size, but it certainly looks like things are looking much more like we were expecting coming into the year. Kyle, we were not expecting Kamani Vidal to be a thing this year. After
tell that to my dynasty team that took him in the second round.
We very much were expecting that last year. But he's been the lead back for 3 games. He's had 2 great games, 1 bad one. This certainly looks like the setup for a 3rd great one. The Chargers almost 2-score favorites on the road in Nashville.
Yeah, this is a smash spot for running backs, much like when was it Vidal's first game where they took on the Dolphins and crushed them? Or maybe it was the first breakout game for Hampton. I forget which one it was. But in a spot where you were both playing a defense that is truly abysmal. The Titans have given up the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing running backs. They rank 27th in rush EPA per play allowed. They're also hemorrhaging injuries at across the defensive positions right now, just trading away players too, because they're obviously sellers at the trade deadline. Of course, the Chargers will be able to beat them in any way they choose to do so, but just as 8.5-point favorites, pass rate over expected won't matter. They will get plenty of carries. And it looks like Hassan Haskins is going to miss another game this week. Not that he was a huge threat for carries. Obviously, Vidal started and outplayed him in all 2, I believe, those games. I think he missed last week. But if there any risk of Vidal seeing only 14 touches, doesn't seem like there's any risk of that. He could push for 20 this week quite easily.
Denny, I joked about your Chargers earlier, but I will say, your Titans. The Titans, they're for a bad team, they're actually doing the things bad teams are supposed to do, where they're trying to get the young players more involved and see what they actually have. They've been doing that with DK. Tyjae Spears is not young at this point, but they've been getting Tyjae Spears more involved. They've even kind of been doing it with Gunnar Helm. Is it a season for any of these players? DK, Helm, Tyjae Spears, so on and so forth.
I just want to mention Gunnar Helm, I think, would be really interesting for fantasy if he got the full-time role, but that doesn't seem to be happening, with Chico Okonkwo still leading the way in routes. So Chimere DK, 21% of the team's air yards last week, was targeted on 22% of his routes. They're using him as a yards after the catch machine, and I think that's a really good fit. It's what he did well in college. He did well last week with that, almost 6 yards after the catch per reception. am somewhat excited about him if he can hold on to that role. I don't know if Calvin Ridley will be back. I don't know if he'll be traded, but someone to monitor, obviously, in deeper leagues. I actually like him more than Io Maynor at the moment. Maybe that's a little much, but
I think that's fine.
They seem to like DK more than Io Maynor right now.
Yeah, exactly. I think Van Jefferson, DK, and Io Maynor all had the exact same amount of targets last week. I believe DK only had the third most air yards, but at this point, I don't want, Denny and I talked about this, I don't want high difficulty throws for Io Maynor or for Van Jefferson. Give me the easy stuff. Give me the scheme touches for DK. Of note, Denny, Calvin Ridley didn't practice on Wednesday. He's missed 1 or 2 games, I believe, and then not practicing on Wednesday tells me he's not playing this week.
Not even kidding. I had totally forgotten about him until Denny mentioned him, Calvin Ridley. So I'm assuming
as for the backfield, Tony Pollard over the past 2 weeks. Oh, no, last week, 11 carries to 9 carries for Spears. Spears broke up a 41-yarder, almost scored. Both backs are averaging the same rushing yards after contact over the past 2 games. They're pretty much the same guy, but I would think that they would want to give Spears more of an opportunity going forward.
And this certainly looks like what they want to be Spears' game script, so not looking great for Tony Pollard. Throwing a quarterback Hail Mary, the Saints arrived not just as 2-score underdogs in Los Angeles, but 2 touchdown underdogs. Kyle, Tyler Shuck, now under center. He got a really good graphic on Twitter earlier this week. Check it out if you've not already seen it. A starter graphic, possibly a new QB1 meme has dropped. Spencer Rattler was not playing well, but he was playing well in the only way we care about. He's keeping the lights on in fantasy football, giving a lot of targets to the people who catch passes. Is this a potential disaster for Olave and Shaheed? Tyler Shuck's insertion under center.
Yeah, in terms of like the 10,000-foot view efficiency metrics, Rattler's pretty bad. He was 26 out of 33 qualified quarterbacks in EPA per play. Looking at just passing, he was the 3rd worst quarterback in total EPA specifically, but he was kind of a interesting scrambler. He actually had like the 8th best EPA added on scrambles, and he was relatively accurate. It was like sack-taking, turnovers, fumbles, specifically hit a few fumbles as well that were really hurting his efficiency. But to your point, Pat, he was 11th in completion percent over expected, and because they were losing every game, even if they were like in theory, run-heavy team, you lose every game. You just pass the football a lot anyways, and they were still a high-paced team as well. If you're going to attempt a lot of passes and be relatively accurate, I don't care too much if I'm Chris Olave or Chris Olave fantasy manager if you get intercepted at a high rate or if you lose fumbles at a high rate. He was getting a lot of targets, and they were relatively accurate. I think we'll see a very different style of play from Tyler Shuck in that he was very opposite in college. He had one of the lowest, I believe it was like the 9th lowest pressure to sack rate among Power 5, Power 4 now. Great. I'm going to have to update that to Power 3 someday. But he had the like 9th lowest or maybe 6th lowest pressure to sack rate among Power 5 quarterbacks in his final college season. He had one of the lowest turnover-worthy play rates in his final college season. But do I think this could take the floor out? Absolutely. He is a very underwhelming 2nd-round pick, making his first start at quarterback in the middle of the season. That's what a recipe for disaster looks like. I do think the floor was meaningfully higher with Rattler.
I think Denny was wanting to share that Tyler Shuck led the nation in throwaways. Is that what that finger in the air was about?
Yeah, it's so that's how he fooled the spreadsheet knowers that make the draft picks. Like, this kid.
Spreadsheet knowers are not making draft picks, to be clear. They would not.
They're never near a draft pick.
I think they're at the bottom and they're feeding the machine. And so they fed the machine. Oh, Tyler Shuck doesn't take sacks, but really, like, what's the difference?
Denny, anything of note with the Rams other than they're getting maybe arguably the best player in fantasy football back this week, Puka Nacua?
No. I mean, you're playing. I mean, you're playing all your Rams. You're playing their defense, and you're loving it. I actually bid like an obscene amount on their defense in one league, and I lost. I wasn't even close to get it. So.
That's down. Absolutely horrific. Being down horrific, by the way, Alvin Kamara, Kyle, just no matter what, it doesn't matter who's healthy, what the game script is. He's just not producing. Is he even startable? With, again, the Saints, not just 2-score underdogs, 2 touchdown underdogs in LA.
Yeah, I mean, he is still seeing targets. He is the RB6 in terms of just running back targets, but he's the RB16 in receiving yards, and he does not have a receiving touchdown. It's such empty volume through the air, and it's limited volume on the ground because no matter who the backup is in, whether it be Kendre Miller or Devin Neal, they're seeing some work. So he's the primary back on passing downs, and he earns a lot of targets, but he's not efficient on the ground. He doesn't appear to be efficient through the air anymore, and game script obviously will not be on his side, to the point that you don't even know if he finishes this game. Like, I don't think he barely finished last week. He got a little dinged up. He played through it to some point, but they benched their starting quarterback. I think this could be a point where we start to see more and more evaluations, quote, of Devin Neal, which is just him working in more. He's not really startable on his own, but just like Kendre Miller, he's going to see the ball enough to make Alvin Kamara at best an RB3.
Yeah, Devin Neal is a must roster, by the way, if you have running back problems, which we basically all do. I'm sure Devin Neal was added in a lot of leagues this week, but if he's still hanging out there, needs to be on the end of your bench. This needs to be at the end of the show. Broncos Texans, ghastly game, total under 40. Denny Carter. Broncos smashed the Cowboys in week 8, but they still find themselves again in the only game this week with a total under 40. That's because they're visiting the offense erasing Houston Texans. Houston's getting back Nico Collins, we think. What is the Texans' targets outlook at this point?
I mean, I thought, Dalton Schultz would be legit last week with Nico Collins out. That was not the case. Jalen Noel had a really solid game, although he only ran 45% of the routes. And I don't really understand that. He led the team in air yards. He was targeted on 32% of his routes. That led to 5 catches for 63 yards. It was him. It was Hutchinson, Xavier Hutchinson, and Jaden Higgins who were in two receiver sets.
Braxton Berrios had to get his reps in. It's in his contract. So
and Berrios is hurt, and he's not going to play this week. So Jalen Noel, to me, I mean, he was already interesting because of the profile coming out of college. Even more interesting now going forward. Especially for deep league purposes. But just keep an eye on him. Even if Nico Collins is back, I would think that they would try to get him involved more, but it is the Texans. They seem to have a very certain way of doing things.
Berrios might play this week. He was limited in practice, unless there's an update that he went down.
Okay.
Well, who's not playing, by the way? Pat Surtain II, which producer Adam points out, jacked this game total from 38.5 to 39.5. So that's where the good news for Nico Collins.
That is good news for Nico, though.
It is.
Yeah. Adam points out, by the way, our guy Rivers McCown sounding increasingly desperate every week on the recap podcast, talking about the Houston Texans.
I was a little concerned after talking to Rivers last week on the podcast. I wanted to be like, everything good?
So keep Rivers in mind. Kyle, anything of note with the Broncos? I'm on the road last week. I'm scrolling through box scores. I see RJ Harvey, 2 touchdowns. This looks cool. Looked up this week. Snap percentage was the exact same.
I have devastating news for you.
Yeah, it's much worse than that.
3 touchdowns. He caught one. You didn't see the one he caught.
No, I did not. I didn't make it to that part of the box score.
But also, the heel turn devastating news on top of the devastating news is that his role did not change at all. It was almost the exact same snap share and carry share that he had seen all year. Maybe the one change, and I mean, this is true in the quote data, is that he saw more work in the red zone and inside the 5. He had 2 inside the 5 carries, I believe, or 5 and closer carries. He had 2 or 3 all year. Also a target in the red zone, which he scored on. It was a nice, well-designed play. It looked like how Devon Achane gets used, kind of. Maybe he's carving out, his touches are no different in quantity, but maybe the quality of them is going up because he is maybe carving out what we would sort of call the Joker role. Oh, that reminds me. One of his touchdowns was a wildcat snap. That's why it was very Joker-esque. But the touch total did not change, especially in terms of the share of the pie. Maybe he's vaguely startable, right? Because if you can if you can maybe try and get 2 or 3 red zone touches in a game, that's vaguely viable as we all struggle with running back, but RB4-ish at best. That's kind of generous almost.
Speaking of the Joker, I will become the Joker if Woody Marks, Denny, doesn't continue to see bigger workloads. Had a nice workload last week. Take us home for the show for this game. Is it Woody Marks' season for week 9?
Chubb is mixing in just enough, even with the route running, that it makes.
Folks, that's all the time we have for today.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's Woody Marks all day long. You get him in your lineup, and you don't ask questions.
Nah, it's a shame. Yeah, Nick Chubb not going anywhere.
He's not going anywhere.
Don't like to win. Don't like to score points. Don't like to do cool things. But also, speaking of Joker Nation, RJ Harvey, best ball drafters, they're looking into Denny's son's scary clown costume to be the new next generation Joker. They are down utterly horrific. We're talking as horrific as any best ball bros have ever been.
Well, look down about 20 feet and you'll see the Trevion Henderson drafter way
That's true.
Although to be fair, typically the same guy.
A really, really good point. And they're trying to peacefully coexist with the Christmas tradition stores that are going up in their backyards. We hope that you've peacefully coexisted with us as we broke down the entire Week 9 slate. Just such awesome stuff from Denny and Kyle. Awesome stuff from them while I was gone earlier this week. Check out the Monday and Tuesday podcasts if you have not done so already. Still actionable heading into the weekend. Check out the Funnel Report on Friday. Check out the regression files that are live. Check out Kyle's 10 stats that are live. A Stardom Situm that will be going live. Check out my rankings where I need to update and mention that Trevion Henderson had a fumble. Boy, did I not know that. But you'll know a lot if you read all that stuff and listen to us. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be with you Sunday evening. I botched the outro. We'll talk to you soon.